So we'll just start this one directly in Fusion and let you see the finished examples at the end. This is number 15 of the spinners. It's simple circles and arcs. To make sure that the arcs are centered equally, what I do is create one arc, create this center line right here, and then go in and choose mirror. Then select the arc and the mirroring point, which is the center line, and it automatically creates the arc on the other side. So you don't have to do a lot of work to create this. Same thing on this part of the spinner. I created this arc, created this line from the center circle to the center of this circle, and then did a mirror of this across this to create this. Then each of these is selected. This, and this are selected, and then I go into Sketch and Circular Pattern and do it around the center point to create this, and then the same thing is done for all of these components of the sketch, and then a circular pattern off of this to reach those four. And then I have this thing complete. You would stop the sketch and you would move forward to the extrusion. I did these as two separate extrusions. Since this is a 19mm ball going in this side, this is a 19mm extrusion. This is a lesser extrusion, I believe 12.6mm to hold the 1/2" steel balls. And those extrusions are offset from the base to center those extrusions onto the spinner. Then I went in and did chamfers on the outer edge of the center, on the inner edge of the center to give it a more aggressive look. Then I did the same on the outers and on the inside of the 4-point. Then I created some new caps for this design. It's basically a bunch of circles and extrusions coming up. So I do the extrusion for the center post, for the small spacer, and then a 4mm piece for the where the actual finger contact is. This little spacer ensures that it doesn't slip too far in and bind the bearing. Once that's done, I always chamfer a 0.5mm for this to make it fit easy into the bearing itself. And then for this design, I did a deep 3mm chamfer to work with that aggressive design over all of the spinner. These are simple combines to combine all the parts of this and all the parts of this so that you can more easily export this to whatever you use as a slicer. I'm not sure I've ever shown how to actually do the export. You go in and choose File, 3D Print, and then you can simply select one or the other. Both if you're not careful. Like right now they're both grades, so they would both be selected. Generally it's a good idea to just select one component and print that at a time, especially if you're dropping it out on Thingiverse or somewhere else where others may only want to print a replacement bearing cap or whatever else you're designing. So there we go for that one. Alright, spinner 16. Well, you see the finished design there. Let's go back to the sketch. This is basically identical to the other one without the attachments on the sides. So I'll go over the dimensions on this. The inner for the bearing is 21.85mm, and that's to allow a nice tight fit when the bearing is pressed in. 30mm body of the spinner. Then for the 19mm or 3/4 inch balls that go on the ends, I've got 18.8, again to allow a nice tight fit, and then 26mm overall. The arcs are 3-point arcs, so I place a point here, a point here, and then I just move the middle around until it looks good. And then again, that is simply mirrored across this center line that I have to create this. All of those components are selected, and with a circular pattern with 2 positions placed down here. Overall, the entire sketch and mirroring and pattern might take you 3 minutes, 4 minutes. It's very quick. So we'll stop the sketch and move forward to the extrusion. So here's the extrusion, and this is up, I believe, 19 millimeters, since that's the size of the balls. I did a fillet. Let's see if you can see that again. To smooth out this, I did a fillet to make that a nicer contour. And then I did a fillet basically on every exterior edge to create this nice smooth design. And then I moved forward with the chamfer to give a bit of aggressiveness in the center, as well as to reduce this part where the bearing actually fits to the 7 millimeter height of the bearing, so the bearing isn't just dropped in somewhere without knowing how it's properly positioned in the center. So, simple design. Let's take a look at the finished printed results. Here are the 2 spinners after they've been printed. We have this simple little guy. Has a nice long spin time of about 1.5 to 2 minutes. And this is with Red's bearings. It's got some good weight to it. The caps sit flush and they look really good with the design. Use the same caps for this design as well. That was a bad spin. It's got a nice long spin. Feels quite a bit heavier. Spin is a little shorter on this one, so it's about 1.5 minutes total. But the design looks good. This cap could be redesigned slightly to have maybe a peak coming across the center, or maybe a deep valley or deep cone in the center with the higher peaks on the side. But keeping the same cap for both makes the design a bit easier. But they both spin well. And there you go. So until next time, keep designing.